Back here again with Econoline's 4th generation. I guess that'd be 07 to 14, and probably earlier models too. Maybe even 95, all the way up.
I think 97 was the limit, actually.
Well, I don't know. Whatever. All I know is there's zero information out there, pretty much, and tons of conflicting information about body bushings. And the body bushings, that body bushing, I finally determined the one that I'm looking at, according to Dorman and other Ford Parts Giant, everybody I could possibly get a hold of. As you can see, I got the body jacked up a little bit right here to see. This bushing was a little flat on the passenger side compared to all the other bushings, and so flat, in fact, that the frame, the body itself, was actually barely touching the frame further underneath there toward the vacuum canister. Other folks have vacuum canisters up front in different places, other models. This 99 extended cargo has the vacuum canister right here, so you got to be careful of that if you jack it up from the body. I just happen to have a piece of AR 500 steel plate underneath there just to put as a jack mount to not bend the body. But I cut a piece of rubber, not the best, but what I found, off of an old motor mount shield. That's how much space I got under the bushing when I jack it up. But that bushing was extra flat compared to the passenger side.
The driver, yeah.
The driver. This is the passenger. So just for reference, the passenger side is number 2. And when they refer to number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and 6, and 7, they're referring to looking at the side of the vehicle from a straight line. Number 1 would be the front bumper, right here. That's mount number 1. So if you're looking at Dorman and Dorman says, well, you need mount number 1, then mount number 1 is there. The way they identify the very front mount is by the insulator underneath. That's the upper insulator you're looking at.
It's in there.
The insulator underneath is kind of a hexagon shape, or at least flat-sided on 2 sides. That's mount number 1. Mount number 2 is a little bit flatter, but it's about the same roundness as mount number 1. But it doesn't have a hexagon or shaved sides to the mount. And it also has, as you can look right here inside, a sleeve. You turn that phone on, the light on that piece of junk.
Yeah, get that.
Sorry about the crosshairs again on the phone. We fried it playing around. There is a sleeve right there that holds your body in place. The vehicle has to be lifted up higher than that sleeve, so the whole sleeve and washer can be removed this way once the bolt is removed and pushed up through the floor panel. So we don't want to do all that today. We just want to add some rubber to that just to get some height back, to get it off of the chassis off the frame. Passenger side seems to be the place where the chassis would touch. It's the closest point. I can show you all that after I put the jack down. But in the meantime, this is number 1, this is number 2, and then I think number 3 is in line right behind the door here. Number 3 is also the same as number 2.
Number 4 is the same as those.
Number 4 is the same. You might have a clover-shaped upper insulator.
Well, it looks like a gear.
It looks like a cog or a gear. Go show them a clover shape.
Right here. Got those notches in it.
Those parts cross-reference with number 2.
Yeah, they're all technically the same.
They're all technically the same except for there are 3 different mounts on this vehicle. 3 different body mounts. The 2 that are different from all the rest, the majority of them are equivalent to number 2, this mount. Number 1 is different because it has
that bottom insulator, yeah.
The bottom insulator is hexagon shaped almost, and it also has a different size hole, or a funny shaped hole that holds the top of the body, the front end down in the front of the vehicle to go through. So the steel is different. And the rubber on most of them seem to be different colors, like tan
Blue.
or blue, with a black coating over it. So those front mounts, body mounts, are different. Then so number 1 is different, number 2 is the same, number 3 is the same, number 4 I think is the same, but right somewhere behind,
right here,
right before the rear wheel, on even the shorter version of the vans,
that one,
have a longer rubber at the top.
number 5.
Number 5 is your different mount. So you have number 1 and number 5 are your 2 different mounts, and the rest of your mounts are the same.
And then you have number 6, and if you have an extended van, number 7.
Number 7. So you
In the
have,
rear.
when they're referring to these 5, 6, and 7s, they're not going from left to right, right to left. They're saying straight line in a row. So if I have 7, then I have a total of 14 mounts. So number 7.
In the very rear.
Right. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows of mounts. So 7 and 7 is 14. So there are 14 mounts on this van total.
Row number 5 and row number 1.
Yeah, so they're referring to rows. So whether you're looking at the passenger side of the truck or the driver's side, it doesn't matter as long as you're going from the front bumper to the rear, starting with number 1. Row number 1, row number 2, and so on and so on. This should clear up some of the crap going around about trying to pick out Ford numbers for different mounts.
Now, what about those clovers? You think that means anything?
No, because I got an 07 over there that has no clovers all the way down the back, and the mounts are about the same thickness. Okay? It's all about the
position.
Not the insulator, but the bell shape of the guide that goes down into the frame to hold the body in place. You understand?
Yeah.
That's the difference. They are different size holes and different shape holes. Not so much, the only one that's a different shape hole, like an oval shape or a funny oval shape, would be the front mount.
Number 1.
Number 1 for the bumper, for where the bumper is or where the frame and the bumper are, right there. So that'd be the only one that would be funny sized as far as the top of the washer / insulator guide, or whatever you want to call that piece of steel that Dorman wants to sell you that's so expensive. They sell you the whole apparatus because they figure you're going to break the bolts off taking them out because they're all rusted, and you probably would get by with a good PV blaster or some other lubricant getting most of the bolts off without breaking them if you're careful. But if they're rusted and through, you don't want to take any chances of losing the body on the vehicle. But the chances of 14 mounts breaking are very slim. So I hope this helps explain on the Econoline body style in general, from E150 all the way up to E450 box trucks.
And even the older gen Econoline still use the same method of positioning.
Same method of positioning, even though there are pictures showing that number 1 starts right here behind the fender. That's bullshit, because when they sell you something, it's always number 1 starts by the bumper.
Dorman number 1, Dorman number 5, Dorman number 2,
Right,
3,
right.
4.
So I think
7,
people get
6.
the message. So I hope this video helps you figure out what insulators to pick out for the Econoline, because every time you pull up something is, will the F-Series interchange with the Econoline?
Or here's the position of the F-Series, not the E-Series.
Not the E-Series, because nobody's trying to body lift an E-Series. And that's just...
No one's trying to change these on an E-Series either, hardly.
And I don't know what it would feel like to ride around with aftermarket
or universal polyurethane.
Polyurethane bushings would probably vibrate the hell out of the truck, especially if you want to drive in comfort. So I can't imagine what polyurethane would feel like underneath this vehicle, all the way across, vibrating. Polyurethane is not very pliable. It's not very soft. It's very hard.
That could be the next subject of your video.
It will be, because there are some bushings on the Econoline that are beneficial to use polyurethane on, but very few. To stop the front end from going out of alignment, out of whack, and in heavy oil locations. But there are some polyurethane bushings, like the radius arm bushings, which are right here, that I have polyurethane bushings for radius arm bushings, and I hate them. I hate them because they vibrate too much when you hit a bump through the bottom of the truck. But the lower control arm bushings, or the twin I-beam bushings down at the bottom, are worthy of using a polyurethane bushing. It turns out that using a polyurethane bushing there is good because there's not much give, and that means it won't throw off your caster camber, toe in, toe out, etc. So where I'd use a regular rubber would be for what I'm fixing to replace, and then any body bushings would definitely be rubber, natural rubber. And the sway arm bar like this doesn't create much vibration inside the vehicle, so using a poly bushing here wouldn't be a problem, and a poly insert to go inside the twin I-beam for the stabilizer bar, that wouldn't be a problem for vibration. But right there where the radius arm hooks is definitely a rubber candidate, and so let that kind of be some kind of, you know, lesson. I've had this vehicle for 11 years, and I have polyurethane bushings on the twin I-beam, and the twin I-beam is still within spec and hasn't moved itself out too much, and I'm fixing to replace them again with more polyurethane bushings. They're very small and they only pivot up and down, up and down. They don't go side to side very much, and that's a good thing, because polyurethane is not pliable in those kinds of directions. Not for a comfortable ride. But something jamming straight back like that, you could stay with a poly, but still you feel the vibration of the road going across that radius arm with a thick polyurethane bushing. So that's why I'm going to rubber on that, because that's a major point of contact between you, your ass, and the seat, and the road. And this is where you want to pay the most attention to a comfortable ride, because let's face it, the Econoline doesn't ride as smooth as the Chevy Express. And that sucks, because Chevy Express is a pile of shit, and an Econoline is much stronger. That's why there are more Econolines on the road than Chevy Expresses. But making them ride comfortable is something that you have to focus on. Using polyurethane bushings here at the shock tower, I wouldn't recommend, because that's still a point of vibration. But like I said, the only place I'd really use polyurethane is the sway bar and the twin I-beam bushings that meet in the center of the truck. And I'll make a later video on how to change those real easy, where you just drill out the shell and use the same shell and put polyurethane bushings